Can I get some white out for this? As the second of 10 kids, add mom and dad, and you have 1 dozen. This evening, Tim Rickey will finally do an icebreaker, and the title of his speech is "Who Said It's Cheaper by the Dozen?" Please welcome Toastmaster Timothy Michael.
10 kids. Can you imagine today somebody having 10 children? I certainly can't. But apparently mom and dad thought differently. My dad came from a farm background where the more boys, the more crops, the easier it was to work a farm. But I'm the second of 10 children. I grew up 1 block from Wrigley Field. Ironically, at age 4, I started my first business. That 1 block from Wrigley Field. We lived in Chicago for a few years, and then when Dad came back out of the service after World War II, we moved to Villa Park, Illinois, the home of the greatest drink possible in those days, called Ovaltine. Anybody remember Ovaltine? Sure you do, yeah. And I never did get my secret signal ring from Annie. So we lived there, and then we moved to Elmhurst a year later and bought our first home. Now you've got an 1,100 square foot house. Think about that. That's enough to think about. And that includes the basement, which we couldn't use. 1 bathroom. It was the home was heated in the winter by gravity furnace. In other words, you bank the fire by putting coal up the sides of the furnace in the basement, and as the coal burned, it would go to the center. God help the one that didn't bank the fire right the night before, which one of us boys would have to do. Because if it was February and it's 17 below, you got to get up and go start that fire. Because nobody wants to get out of bed, and they have to do. So the honeymoon would be over if you made that mistake. Well, I went to high school at York High School in Elmhurst, Illinois, where the most famous crack coach in the world of high school sports lives. I just found it out 2 years ago. His name is Joe Newton. And there's a movie called The Long Green Line Movie. That's also the website. It's very interesting. My first job was at a shoe store. And I remember the day I got hired, the boss said, "I'm going to let you have credit and get a brand new pair of shoes." I said, "Really? But why would you do that?" He says, "Well, we can't have you working with the sole on your shoe flapping." True, that's a true story. I could wear my brother's suede shoes until I could shine them. Think about that for a minute. And that's true, it really was. We had absolutely nothing. We grew up in quite a bit of poverty. As a kid, I had bad teeth as a kid. Had to wait till I was 17 to get a job to take care of my teeth, take care of my health to a certain degree. Because Dad couldn't afford that with 10 kids. It just was not possible. I also stuttered a great deal. I was scared to death of my father, as we all were, but I stuttered like crazy. I never thought, who would ever think that you're going to be a Toastmaster someday? You just don't think in those terms. But I worked in the shoe store for high school, and then after high school at 19, they gave me my own store. Very young, but I handled it well. It was a very successful store. I went on to Sears, and from there, the learning experience of working all those years with Sears, I started my own business. Back when I arrived here in Orlando in 1979, I opened the first teammate service in Florida with $13.68. It did millions. And it was a really nice little honeymoon. For quite a while after I sold the business for 8 years, I got a check every month for $3,000. And then I got into another business where I was cheated and I lost everything. But there was an advantage to that, because when I lost everything, I found everything. I found everything that was important. It was about that same time I discovered an organization that really helped me express myself, and we're standing in that organization. Toastmasters. 4 years in, Tony Robbins hired me to be a speaker and a trainer of his speakers. He hired us all to be speakers, but I found out there were 14 of us. The other 13 had no speaking skills at all. They'd never done it. How they ever got through the interview process to go out and do speeches for Tony Robbins amazed me. And at my interview, the last thing he said to me was, "Well, Tim, I've only got a couple of minutes here. Can you do something for me?" And that was the year I was in district contest. So I did that speech, and he sat there and he said, "Okay, Tim, we'll be back in touch with you." And they hired me. And it was very successful. It was 2001, and it was right after I finished. I went out on my first speaking assignment on 9/11. And when I did my speech, I was almost finished with almost 9 o'clock in the morning. everybody's cell phone went off, and everybody left the room. I had no idea what was going on, and that was 9/11. But through the following months, first we couldn't get in to see anybody because where were all of us at those times? And finally they called me back and said we need somebody to come in and talk to our people. Everybody was down and out. So we ended up putting 5,000 people in the convention center that weekend, and they walked the coals too. Anybody heard about walking the coals with Tony Robbins? I've done it twice. You want to see the scars? Just kidding. There are no scars. It worked out really well. But from Toastmasters experience, my life went in a completely different direction. From being a successful businessman to learning to be a speaker. And when you write a speech, you put components together. Isn't that the way a book is written? I have 7 books. I'm working on an 8. This all came because of this organization. It has simply amazed me what I found out about me and the friends I've made here. Such great people, and the stories you tell. Wow! And we've taken this to the DOM, the rehab center, on Wednesday morning for the veterans. And we're getting those guys to open up doing speeches. And now Doc says, you know what? They're talking to us for the first time. What a rewarding experience it is for us putting this on. So that will continue. It's been a year and a half and just going very well. These guys, they're spreading the word. They're only there for a few weeks, but somehow the word's spreading and their speeches are getting really good. And they only get to do one because they're gone. But they're getting very, very good at it. So what does my future look like? Actually, is to produce more books and to speak on behalf of what's in those books. That's what I look forward to over the next years, because I've been having a blast the last few years. Found out it isn't about money, it's about living. And I live in the present almost all the time. If I catch myself, I slap myself and say, get back to the present. That's the only thing that's important, and it is. So stay with this organization.